again. I've been asked to show the Stitch Sampler from the very start, so I've decided to do a tutorial to actually start you off if you want to start one from the beginning. We start with a chain of 158, and I would recommend that you do the chain quite loosely, and so that you can keep count of the chains rather than having to count them all at the end. I usually put a stitch marker every 20 stitches, so you've got 20, 40, 60, 80 and so on until you get to the 158. It just saves having to literally count them one by one. Once you've done the chain of 158, we then start with half double crochets. The piece I'm going to work on has not got 158 because it would take too long to work across each row. But once you've got the 158, you're going to chain 2, and that's going to count as the first half double. So then into the third chain from the hook, yarn over, into the stitch, pick up the loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. That's a half double crochet. Again into the next chain, pick up the loop, yarn over and through all 3. So the first 2 chains count as the first half double, and then we do a half double in each stitch all the way along the row. Yarn over, into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and through all 3, and just carry on in that same way all the way along until you get to the other end. I always find that a half double is a good base stitch, so I often do a row of half doubles in between the fancier stitches, because there is a good base stitch for working into the tops of these stitches. So just carry on all the way along the row, working a half stitch into each of the chains, and I'll see you when you get to the end of the row. As you reach the very last stitch, we again do one half double into that stitch. Going to snip off the yarn, pull it through to fasten off, and then the following row I'm going to work a V-stitch, which is going to form the look of a leaf, and then row 3 will be the cluster stitch, which forms a little flower. You can work your rows in any order and any colour that you wish. If you're going to do the V-stitch with the cluster stitch, I would recommend that you use a green, as it looks more like a leaf. You can do the rows in any order that you want. I've already done a tutorial for the star stitch, the popcorn stitch, the wave stitch, not sure which other ones I've actually got uploaded so far, but as I say, you don't have to do them in the same order as I've done them on my sampler. You can make your sampler unique to yourself. So to start, we're going to join into the second of those 2 chains that we did as the starting double crochet of the previous row. And we're going to work 3 chain, and that's going to count as the first stitch. We then do 1 double into the next stitch, chain 1 and a double into that same stitch. We're then going to miss a stitch, and we're going to do a double, chain 1 and a double into that same stitch again, so you can see that it's forming a V. Again, miss the next stitch and work a V which is 1 double, 1 chain, 1 double into the next stitch, miss the next stitch and a V-stitch into the next one, which is 1 double, 1 chain, 1 double. We're going to carry on exactly the same all the way along this row, skipping a stitch, working a V, skipping a stitch and working a V. Skip the next stitch and work a V into the next one, skip the next one and again another V stitch. So we carry on all the way along working a V starting with the 3 chain and then a V stitch, skip one, a V stitch, skip one, and then at the very end of the row you'll have 1 stitch left, and we do a double so that it's the same as the other side. So I'll see you when you get to the end of this row. So we've reached the end of the row, we've done the last V stitch, we're going to skip the next stitch and just work the last stitch, which is a double. Fasten off the yarn and then we're going to go back to the start of the round where we're going to do a cluster stitch in each of the V's. I'm going to use a bright pink for this one. The row that we're doing is this one here. So we've got the V stitches, as you can see, running along just underneath. The next stitch we're going to do is this cluster stitch. So again we're going to join with a slip knot onto the hook, and we're going to go into the top of the 3rd chain that was the starting stitch from the previous row, and we just join in there with a slip stitch, and again we're going to do the 3 chain, which is going to count as the 1st stitch. We then chain 1 and we're going to work a cluster into the middle of these V's where the 1 chain space is. So yarn over, into the space, pick up a loop, yarn over and through 2, but don't go through the second half of the double. Again yarn over, into the stitch, pick up a loop and through 2. We've now got 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, into the space, pick up a loop, yarn over and through 2, and I'm going to yarn over and go through all of the loops at the same time, followed by chain 1. We're now going to chain 1 and exactly the same again, we're going to do another cluster. So it's yarn forward, into the chain space, pick up a loop, through 2, yarn over, into the space, pick up a loop, yarn over, through 2, yarn over, into the space, pick up a loop, yarn over, through 2, and then yarn over and come through all 4 at the same time, chain 1. That chain 1 is to close the cluster off, and then we do a chain 1 that's going to go in between the 2 stitches. So again, yarn over, into the space, pick up a loop, yarn over, through 2, yarn over, into the space, pick up a loop, yarn over, through 2, yarn over, pick up a loop, yarn over, through 2, and then your final yarn over, you'll have 4 loops on the hook. We yarn over and pull through all at the same time. Throughout the sampler I've stuck to the same size hook, which is a 5mm, and all of the yarn that I'm using is double knit. chain 1 and a chain to go in between, and then again a cluster, yarn over, pick up a loop, yarn over through 2, yarn over, pick up a loop, yarn over through 2, yarn over, pick up a loop, yarn over and through 2. 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 3, chain 1 to fasten off the cluster and chain 1 to go between the stitches. And we're going to carry on doing exactly the same all the way across the row. Through all 3, through all 4, chain 1 to finish, chain 1 to go in between. As you'll see in future tutorials, I've actually turned the work completely upside down and worked rows coming from the other side of that starting chain, so some of the flowers may point this way, some of them may point the other way. I just think it's made a more interesting sampler. And also all of the colours that I've used are bright. I wanted something that's quite a vibrant colour blanket to bring out in the winter time, but done in summer colours. And we carry on all the way across, working one cluster in the centre of each of these V's. So we've got the 3 chain to start plus 1 chain, and then a cluster stitch, which was the going in 3 times but only going through the 2 loops, and then finally going through all 4 loops, a chain to fasten off the cluster and a chain in between, and we do this all the way across. At the very end we'll miss the second half of the V. We do a double into that very last stitch, which is going to keep the sides nice and straight. We fasten off the yarn and pull through to tighten off. The next row is going to be a half double again, that we're going to work one of the half doubles as a front post double around the cluster. And for this stitch I'm going to use a lilac. So again, slip knot onto the hook and join into the top of the 3rd chain, which counts as the first stitch, with a slip stitch, and we're going to do 2 chain, which is going to count as the first half double. We're then going to do a half double into the 1 chain space. The next half double we're going to work as a front post around the cluster. So yarn over into the space behind the cluster, pick up the loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. And then into the space we're going to do a regular half double, which is yarn over, pick up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. And then a front post half double around the next cluster. So yarn over into the space that we've just worked in. The hook goes behind the stitch and we pick up a loop and pull it to the front, yarn over and pull through all 3. A half double in the next chain space, and then a front post half double around the cluster. Half double into the space and the front post half double that works around the cluster. So into the space behind the cluster, pick up the loop, pull to the front, yarn over and pull through all three. And it just helps the cluster to sit a little bit forward. So exactly the same all the way across till you get to the other side, where the last stitch will be a half double into the single double or the solitary double that's at the very end of the row to keep the sides nice and straight. And a half double, a front post half double, half double, front post half double, half double, front post half double, and just carry on exactly the same all the way across. Following this row, you can choose any of the other tutorials that I've already got on the channel. If you wanted to do the star stitch next, you would just go to that tutorial and start from the beginning. Each of the rows that I've done work out to the 158 chain that you had at the beginning, so as long as you check that you've always got 158 stitches after each row, you know that you're going in the right direction. And you can do each row in whatever colour you choose to do. By all means copy my colour scheme, but you can use whatever colours you want to. And then in the next tutorial I will show you how to work the opposite way, working into the other side of the starting chain. And just carry on to the end of this one. And hopefully by now you've got the basis of your Stitch Sampler blanket. And you can do the rows in whatever order you want to as well. If you find that there's a stitch that you particularly like, you might want to do 2 rows of the same stitch. I've done that on mine with the star stitch row that I've done 2 right at the end. So we've got the half double in the chain space, and then the last half double will fall into that final double from the previous row. And we'll snip off the yarn and pull tight. The next row that you start, you'll come back to the beginning. Just show you what I've done on this one with the star stitch. I've worked a star stitch 2 rows because that one works over the 2, going across, and then you turn the work round and come back. But I liked the stitch so much that I decided to do another in the lilac shade. But as I say, you can do any order in any colours until you get the desired size. But I will keep adding in new rows on future tutorials. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Please subscribe to the channel and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.